What's going on, guys? Bobby Bets Fights back again for yet another week of breakdowns. This time we got UFC across the pond in UFC London. So go ahead and grab yourself some tea, grab yourself some crimpets, sit down and watch some face punching. We got Marcin Tybura facing off against Tom Aspinall. About 14-15 fights on this card. Really looking forward to it. Looking forward to breaking them down, starting with the early prelims all the way up through the main card. But first, before we start that, make sure you follow your boy on the socials. On Twitter, it's Bobby Bets Fights. On YouTube, it's Bobby Bets Fights. And on betmma.tips, where I do my third-party tracking. Want to see how I'm doing? It is Bobby Bets Fights. So let's go ahead and jump into last week, which was UFC Vegas 77, home versus Bueno Silva. Your boy got slaughtered, to be completely honest with you. Try to avoid catastrophic loss weeks. I wouldn't call it catastrophic, but, definitely lost a hefty amount, more than I would have liked. So, all in all, down 5.2 units. It's a total of $260 in losses. So we're going to go ahead and run through them. I really only regretted two bets, believe it or not, in that card. It was Albert Duraev, 1, and Terrence McKinney, 2. Both of those guys, the line was moving the other way towards the opponent. The opponent was the one that was gaining ground. They were the favorites. And I stuck with them. I could have cashed them out. Said, you know what? Line's moving the wrong way. Sharp actions on the other side. Time to tap out. Cut our losses. Nope. Decided to roll with them, and they got rolled on. Duraev, who I knew had cardio issues, gassed out in the second. Jung Young Park took over. Ended up getting him out of there. And then Terrence McKinney, same thing. First round hero, second round zero. Had a body triangle in the first, couldn't get the choke, went with the wrestling in the second. Sedikov ended up getting him down, ended up having his arm pinned against his back, and ended up flattening him out for a rear naked choke. Honestly, McKinney doesn't really... It's to be noted that he's not very good at... He doesn't have good resiliency, I will be honest with you. He gives up too easily, in my opinion, in a lot of these fights. Just not a good look. Anyway, moving on, I'll go through the rest of them. Eileen Perez kicked off the night with the win. Little did I know it was going to be my only win. She was minus 150. She looked about minus 700 against Ashley Evans-Smith. 2 30-25s on the scorecard. Absolute domination from her. Wrestling, striking all around. Tyson Nam, plus 320. Split decision. We were so close to 3-1 underdog. So close. But, that's the breaks. It was a close fight. I still love the pick. He definitely covered the plus 320. We keep making those bets. We'll be fine. Estela Nunes broke her arm in 15 seconds in that fight. Dudakova went for an awkward takedown. Ugly, in my opinion. Estela Nunes kind of fell, went to brace herself. If she doesn't break her arm, she gets back up and they stay standing. You never know how that's going to turn out, but ended up losing on that because she broke her arm. Counts as a TKO KO. And then Tucker Lutz didn't do any damage with the takedowns. Couldn't secure the takedown. Spent too much time just trying to hold Melsik Bagdasaryan down. Arguably could have had a point deducted on Bagdasaryan's side because of the fence grabs, the eye poke, and the nut shot. But no point got taken. So ended up losing that one. And then the other one, Otman Zaitar, again, got knocked out by Prado. He was looking decent until he got clipped. Really, he's old. His chin's going. I think Favola really knocked the resiliency out of that chin that he had. So, tough beat there. But, outside of those two, it probably should have been more of like a 3-unit loss, which I could swallow. I normally only stick to 5 bets, but decided to go with 7 because I like so many lines. And, just got bit, That happens. That's gambling. We're still up 24 units on the year, just over $1,200 in profit. So we're going to look to keep it rolling. So we're going to roll right into UFC London. And yeah, I'm going to be looking to make some more money. So let's go ahead and start these breakdowns, starting with the first fight that we got, which is Jafel Filho versus Daniel Barez. Fight's pretty much at a pick'em. It opened up at pick'em. I believe it was minus 110 apiece. Jafel Filho's slight favorite, minus 115. Barez kind of been up and down. Barez was the favorite for a small time, and then Filio's kind of been fluctuating between minus 120 and minus 115. So in this one, it's going to be, in my opinion, a clash of styles. No, I say that a lot, but really I think Barez, even though he is willing to go to the ground, he has decent jiu-jitsu, pretty solid all around. I think his real advantage is going to be in the striking. I really like the way he rips to the body. He throws hard shots. He hits pretty hard for a flyweight. And Filho, I'm not really sold on his stand-up game. Really, his bread gets buttered in jiu-jitsu. And you saw it against Muhammad Mokaev, who's, a world-class grappler. I mean, he had him in trouble twice. And arguably 90% of people tap to that knee bar, except I'd say 99% of people tap to that knee bar. But Muhammad Mokaev's a psycho and refused to tap. Tore up his knee, ended up getting the win. Good for him for being super tough. But really, I think in that fight, I think what shocked me the most was Mokaev as opposed to Filho. Like I wasn't super impressed with Filho being able to grapple. I knew he could grapple. I just didn't know that Mokaev is so susceptible to getting caught in some of these positions, even though I saw it happen against Malcolm Gordon. I don't know if that's because Mokaev's just so comfortable that he's cool with just, he'll sacrifice that position just because he thinks it can lead to him having the superior position or ending up on top. But I don't know. I really think in this one it's going to be a close fight, because if Filho can get it to the ground, I think Barez is going to be more than willing to stay on the ground with him and kind of roll around. I think Filho can definitely win the time battle there with the control time. But if it stays standing, I think Barez is going to hit harder. In this one, I'm going to edge Barez. Not completely confident in the pick. I don't have a bet on it because I'm not that confident, but I will say that I do like the all-around game of Barez, and I do like his striking. I like the digs to the body. I like being able to mix in the combinations. So I'm going to go ahead and go with Daniel Barez for that one. Moving on, we got Bruna Brazil versus Shauna Bannon. Shauna Bannon making her UFC debut. She's a 5-0 debuting fighter out of Ireland. Bruna Brazil coming off a KO loss to D. Gomes, looking to get back on track. So Bruna Brazil came up through the Contender Series. She honestly looked phenomenal in her match against Mark McCann, who's a wrestler. Was able to keep the fight at distance, land those kicks, and landed a devastating head kick knockout, which got her signed to the UFC. In her past performance against D. Gomes, just too much pressure. She wasn't able to stay at range. She wasn't able to establish that kickboxing range, get those kicks in, and really work that in, which is the best part of her game, really. Landed a couple of check hooks, circling out, but she kind of has this bad habit of going straight back when she's trying to evade punches, and D. Gomes is really good at closing the distance, and she's deceptively able to get to the chin when you think you're out of dodge. And that's what happened against Bruna Brazil. And then it just took, one of those ones, like it was a nice left hook to the body of Brazil, and then Brazil tried to counter, and then D. Gomes came back up with the right hand, dropped Brazil, and then finished her off. But no harm, no foul there, because D. Gomes just ran through Yasmin Jairegi, who was a 3-1 favorite in that fight. So D. Gomes is definitely game. Shauna Bannon on the other end, 5-0, pristine record. I really wasn't impressed with Shauna Bannon's fights. I mean, she's got decent striking. She can kick a little bit. I think Bruna Brazil definitely hits harder. I'd say that Shauna Bannon has better volume than Bruna Brazil. I think Brazil can kind of stay in the mirror and kind of look for that perfect shot sometimes, as long as she's comfortable in that distance, where Bannon, she's just constantly going to be poking you. Bannon was good in her last fight. I was really impressed with her ability to counter the low kick. She was timing the low kick of her opponent. Her opponent had her hands down, going for that calf kick, and she was able to drop in a 1-2 right on the chin. And she did it multiple times in that fight. As far as a ground game, I'd edge Brazil. I don't think Brazil is going to be willing to take it there. Kind of will go there if she needs to. But, I didn't see much out of Bannon. She is liable to end up on her back on the ground, and then she will play jiu-jitsu. She's got, the decent flexibility. She can grab that leg, get up to mission control, and she can start with the triangles and the arm bars to try to use it to get back up to her feet. But ultimately, what it boils down to in this fight is I think Brazil's a lot quicker and hits harder than the opponents that Bannon's faced in the past. I think she's going to be able to let go of those leg kicks, and Bannon's not going to be able to time them because they're going to be too quick to get that counter in. And I I've seen too many fights at Bannon where the way to get to Brazil is you got to be interface like D Gomes. In too many fights, Bannon finds herself a kickboxing range where she also is comfortable, but I just edged Brazil in that war. So if you look at the line, I mean, it opened up close to a pick'em. I think Brazil was slightly favored at minus 115. Bannon was minus 105. Bruno Brazil swelled up to a minus 150 favorite. That's the side that I'm going with. That's my pick, and I also have a play on it. I have Bruno Brazil, put 1.2 units on it at minus 130. So that is the first pick of the night. Should say first bet of the night for me. It's Bruno Brazil. Moving on, we got Yanel Ashmouz facing off against Chris Duncan. In this one, Chris Duncan, he another one that opened up close to pick him, and it's kind of swayed the other one way. So Chris Duncan, he's now a minus 140 favorite. Ashmouz is at plus 120. In this fight, I mean, Ashmouz is coming off a highlight reel KO of Sam Patterson. Ended up catching the kick and just laid just an absolute bomb on his chin. Direct hit KO, and then as he was going down, landed the left hand just to put another nail in the coffin of Sam Patterson. It was just such a violent knockout. Like, the guy's got pop in his hands. That's an absolute fact. Just absolute cement bricks for hands when he can rip them off, dude. And it's scary for a guy who's, I wouldn't say he's the biggest lightweight, that's for sure. He definitely is strong, but yeah, dude, he's got some hands. Chris Duncan, on the other hand, pretty well-rounded fighter. I mean, coming off of the Contender Series in his second try, lost to Slava Claus by a second-round knockout in his first go, and then the next time around, he was getting absolutely lit up by Charlie Campbell. Arguably was on his last leg on Queer Street and ended up knocking Charlie Campbell out cold, which is just straight right down the pipe. Pretty incredible comeback. He comes out the next time against Omar Morales and just wrestles him into the ground. Good win for Chris Duncan, exploiting his opponent's weakness. Good fight IQ. In this one, I mean, you look at Ashmouz. Ashmouz is liable to getting taken down. I mean, he's gotten taken down on the regional scene. He's gotten held down on the regional scene. So that's definitely a path to victory that Chris Duncan has, and I feel like he's going to utilize it. The kicker, though, is Chris Duncan. He gets hit a lot, and when he gets hit, he doesn't really react well. He is a little bit chinny. Like I said, against Slava Claus, Slava Borshchev. I should use his full name, not his nickname. Slava Borshchev. In that Contender Series fight, I mean, he got dropped. He got knocked out cold, but he also took some damage in that first round. And then, Charlie Campbell, like I said, probably scored about 3 knockdowns. They didn't count a single one, but he dropped Duncan multiple times in that fight, and he just ate nasty uppercuts. So, against a guy who's as heavy-handed as Ashmouz, it's kind of a liability to not be able to take that kind of damage. And it's really just going to boil down to, can Duncan keep Ashmouz down for 3 rounds and not tire out? Because Ashmouz does have a gas tank, and he will be there in the 3rd round. Showed that in his previous fights when he's been held down. He's able to come back through adversity in that 3rd round. So in this one, line's moving towards Duncan. As far as my pick, I don't have a play on it, but I'm going to go with Ashmouz just because I do like his stand-up, and I think, he's got to be drilling that takedown defense, and if he can touch Duncan, he's going to hurt Duncan, and I'm going to go with the more devastating puncher in this one. I wouldn't call Ashmouz a polished striker, because he's not. He's going to throw big overhands, and they're going to be like 1, maybe 2 punch combinations, really just looking to put your lights out with big punches. It's not a guy who's going to stay in there, establish the jab, set up traps, and really throw together combinations. He's going to go in there slugging, and he's going to come out of that cage slugging if he is still conscious. So that's what I love about him. Those are the type of fighters that we love, man. Just dudes that go in there and brawl Trevor Peake style, baby. I don't care what no one says. They're the most entertaining. Go with Yanel Ashmouz. Next fight, we got Kianzad facing off against Ketlen Vieira. And this one, Vieira opened a pretty heavy favorite at minus 200. Kianzad was plus 170. She's now down to plus 130. Ketlen Vieira is minus 150, so about 40 cents worth of movement in the underdog's way. In this fight, it's going to be extremely close. I don't know what those opening odds were about. Ketlen Vieira is an extremely low-volume striker, doesn't throw a lot. When she hits, she does hit hard, but really she gets it done in the clinch and gets it with the takedowns and the top pressure. In my opinion, Ketlen Vieira is a pretty boring fighter. Just going to put it out there. I don't see the hype around Ketlen Vieira. Kianzad, volume striker. Almost, like when we're looking at the stats, I mean, almost double what Ketlen Vieira puts out in strikes, in significant strikes per fight. She gets hit more than Vieira, slightly. I think it's about 4 strikes absorbed to around 3 something for Vieira, but still, double the output. And the thing with Kianzad is she's got good takedown defense. In the Pennington fight, she's able to dig those underhooks. She's constantly up against a cage. She's constantly fighting for those hooks to be able to get in and get that position to be able to turn her opponent around in the clinch. And she doesn't get taken down easily. She makes you work for it. And Ketlen Vieira, she will work in that clinch and she is going to work to get that takedown. But I think in this fight, she's going to have a difficult time doing it against Kianzad, who, is able, like I said, able to dig those hooks. And once she gets them in, she turns her opponent. And if not, she'll separate and she'll land some shots off the break. So the only thing I worry about with Kianzad is she is liable to get hit. I mean, Lena Landsberg dropped her with a cheeky little elbow. It's UFC London, so we got to throw in the terminology. A nice little cheeky elbow, and dropped her. But she got right back up. Pennington was able to touch her a couple of times, but Pennington's striking's a little awkward. She kind of just storms in with a flurry. And tries to touch you and then get into the clinch and then make it a boring fight. But that's besides the point. I think this fight's there's going to be a lot of clinch work. A lot of just grimy work up against the cage. It's going to be kind of a boring fight, and I think it's because Ketlen Vieira is going to make it a boring fight, because at distance, I think Kianzad's just going to be touching her more. Don't think she's going to be able to put Vieira out by any means, but I think she's just going to be touching her more. And yeah, it's going to come down to a judge's scorecard decision. It's going to be extremely close, and I got Penny Kianzad on that. And I got a bet on her. I got in at plus 148. So I'm taking her for a unit. I really think it's a close fight, and I really do see a lot of value in the underdog, and so do the sharps, which is why the line's moving in her favor. Moving on, we got Uzbekistan's own Mahmoud Muradov facing off against Bryan Barberena, who is going up to middleweight, and I do not understand why. Bryan Barberena was a soft welterweight. Never really had, a six-pack of abs. He was a guy who could have a little bit, right around the in the tummy area. Never really kind of like a dad bod fighter, so to speak. And then he's going up to middleweight. I mean, he's like 6 foot. He's going to be an extremely undersized middleweight, in my opinion. And he's a guy that, most of his knockouts are because of his volume. Like, he's just a very good striker and stand up. He gets hit a lot, but he's not afraid to just bite down on the mouthpiece and just stay in the pocket and trade with you. And he's going to touch you, and he's going to touch you, and he's going to touch you until you finally can't take it anymore. Yeah, and, a really good performance against Robbie Lawler. That was probably his best performance recently. And then coming off loss where, he got grappled, out-grappled pretty easily by Gunnar Nelson. So, moving up to middleweight, again, not sure why. Mahmoud Muradov, solid all around, really. I mean, lost to Kyle Baralho, who's just like an uber grappler. It's tough. I don't really put too much stock into that. He's had great performances. I mean, against Mearschart, he was piecing him up until Mearschart somehow just... He's got that dog in him in some of those fights. Mearschart, he doesn't just give up. Like, you really got to put his lights out. You can't just hurt him. And stuck around and ended up submitting Muradov. So in his past performances, though, Muradov showed that he's got hands, he's got pop, he's got a good all-around game. He can wrestle. He isn't a slouch on the mat. And he showed that in his past performances. And he's going to be the much bigger dude in this fight. Much bigger. So I just don't understand it. And the odds reflect my skepticism. Muradov's minus 335, Barberena's plus 260. Barberena opened plus 245, and he's still going the other way as a heavy underdog. So again, this one baffles me because I think Muradov can get it done in a couple of different areas. I think he can hurt Barberena on the feet. Barberena's a tough SOB, so I don't think he's going to be able to, he's going to really have to put him out, hurt him and then go in for the kill. But he can also get it done with the wrestling. Barberena, takedown defense. You can cut through it like butter. He gets taken down, but his MO is he gets right back up. But you can get him down. And if Muradov can keep him down because he's going to be the bigger guy, absolutely can win this fight. It's, in my opinion, I just don't see how Barberena has a path to victory unless he can hurt Muradov, which I don't want to discredit. He can. He absolutely can, but it's going to be tough. You're moving up to middleweight. These are bigger boys. So we'll see. I'm going with Muradov as my pick, as the favorite. Moving on. Also don't have a bet on it. Moving on, we got Mick Parkin facing off against Jamal Pogues. So this one, some interesting live movement because Pogues opened right around minus 140, minus 150, kind of went up a little bit to minus 180 and then dropped all the way down to minus 140. You got some money coming in, a little bit of love on Parkin, and then as it stands right now, Pogues getting some later love. He's up to minus 165. Parkin can be had at plus 135. So money coming in on Pogues. In this matchup, I mean, Parkin has good wrestling. I think that's really where he gets the job done, is being able to take guys down, keep them down, and work that really good ground and pound that he has. He's pretty big for a heavyweight, but he's kind of got like a more like he doesn't have like a big gut. Like he's just a strong dude, just overall, just really big, like 6'4", definitely built for heavyweight. Jamal Pogues, another big dude. I mean, he's fought at light heavyweight before, but don't have to cut weight when you're at heavyweight, right? So he's 6'3". Jamal Pogues, good all around game. I mean, I give him the advantage on the feet. He's got a really good jab and he uses it. The only knock on Pogues really is I do think sometimes he's afraid to throw his hands, like in his Contender Series fight against a guy who is more of a stand-up fighter. You could just tell that he was a little uncomfortable, didn't want to get countered, didn't want to get hit, so he could snap that jab out there, as the quicker fighter. Like, he does have quick hands. He's an athletic dude, but he really wasn't going to string together many combinations. Like, he's not going to stay in the pocket and land body work and then come back up to the head. He's going to be jab and then out. Jab, keep my distance, jab, like really not Sean Strickland spamming the jab, not like a complete jab merchant, but you'll see a jab and then maybe a 1-2. He's going to work in some leg kicks, and then he's ultimately going to be trying to take you down because he does have good wrestling and mix it in. So makes this fight a little bit tough, because if Pogues goes to his wrestling, that's Parkin's world. But on the feet, I think Parkin's just going to be eating jabs, standing the whole time. So I think Parkin's going to be the one forcing the wrestling. I think Pogues is going to be able to keep it on the feet, or even have his own success reversing the position in the wrestling. Parkin's never been to a third round, and Jamal Pogues has fought a much tougher schedule. I mean, guys who are 11-0, guys who are 12-1. He's fought in Bellator, and he's fought guys that are the cream of the crop. Where Parkin, a lot of guys with losing records. Really, the best win on his record is his Contender Series fight, where he fought a guy who was 5-0. So I don't like to go off of records. I mean, we're not going to, as the kids say, quote unquote, wiki cap here. But I will say I'm a lot more comfortable with Jamal Pogues' record, whereas Parkin's leaves a lot to be desired. Leaves a lot of question marks, to say the least, in his abilities, because we haven't seen him against someone good. But we will find out in this fight. We will find out if Parkin is the real deal and he can hang out in heavyweight in his debut. For the pick, I'm going with Jamal Pogues. Like I said, I think he's just going to jab Parkin's face off. He's going to mix in a 1-2, and then he's going to be able to work in some takedowns for some wrestling. Parkin might even gas late because he's never been there, and I think Pogues kind of cruises to a decision in this one. So going with Jamal Pogues, don't have a bet on it. Moving on, we got DIakese facing off against Joel Alvarez. I can tell you exactly how this fight's going to go down. But first, let's look at the line. So they opened up, Joel Alvarez right around minus 140. DIakese was plus 120, and Joel Alvarez just an avalanche worth of line movement in his favor. He's up to minus 195. DIakese's at plus 165. So people are really liking Joel Alvarez. The sharps are liking Joel Alvarez, really like his chances. And in this fight, I can kind of see why, but I'm pretty skeptical, to be honest with you. I mean, at lightweight, Joel Alvarez is a huge lightweight, 6 foot plus. Just towers over opponents. DIakese, on the other hand, he's had solid, fun fights in the past. He's really become more of a leaning on his wrestling more recently in his fights, just because he's looking to get wins, string together some wins, and yeah, that's what he's done. He's turned into, Dagestani wrestler, hold you down, a little bit of ground and pound, keep you down on the ground, do enough to really win the fight. He did it against Borshchev, he did it against Herzovich, I think that's his name. But yeah, that's DIakese, and in this fight, he's going to be able to do that. He's going to be able to implement his wrestling. He's going to take Joel Alvarez down. Joel Alvarez has no takedown defense. You know why? Because Joel Alvarez loves his jiu-jitsu. He's confident in his jiu-jitsu. He wants to get down to the ground so he can start to work his jiu-jitsu. He's confident that, one, He can catch you in some type of submission off his back. He can get you in an armbar. He can get you in a triangle. Or he can sweep you. He can get on top. He can find your back. He can choke you out. He's got a really good guillotine too. You go in for that double leg. You don't have your head in the right position. He's going to snatch that up, and it's going to be game over. These guys with these long limbs that are these jiu-jitsu practitioners can really get to some of these submissions because of their length. And that's Joel Alvarez in a nutshell. I think out of all of his wins, I mean, he's got over 20 wins, I believe. And, 80 to 90% of the wins are by submission. He's just that one shot, one kill Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu style. So what it's going to boil down to, I mean, DIakese is going to ultimately shoot, okay? And he's either going to get the fight down to the ground or he's going to get submitted. If he gets the fight down to the ground, he could still get submitted. It's going to be 3 rounds of can Mark DIakese's control on the ground and his wrestling outweigh whatever Joel Alvarez throws at him as far as a submission attempt or damage while they're standing. I see it on the feet. I mean, DIakese has decent striking. I wouldn't say decent striking. He has good striking. I mean, he's going to wars with Rafael Fiziev. Definitely competed in that fight. Definitely lost that fight. But he can throw, like he can bang. But Joel Alvarez, decent striking in his own right. Honestly, I just don't even see it really playing out on the feet. Like I'm going through it in my head. I'm running a million simulations right now, fellas. I'm literally putting together the odds. I'm just a friggin' human computer right now in my head, and yeah, all the simulations are telling me this one's going to the mat. So yeah, I'm going to go with Joel Alvarez. I think that he's going to be able to submit DIakese. I think DIakese is going to go in for a takedown defense, man. I swear to God, I need some coffee. My brain is not working today. He's going to go in for a takedown, and Alvarez is going to snatch his neck and guillotine him. If it goes to the ground, I don't think DIakese. I think Alvarez isn't going to just sit still. He's going to be working his jiu-jitsu, and I think it's just going to be too much for DIakese. So give me Joel Alvarez. Give me Joel Alvarez by submission. I don't have a bet on it because the line steamed, but yeah, give me Joel Alvarez in that one. Moving on, we got Danny Roberts against Johnny Parsons. So in this one, in contrast to my last breakdown, this fight's going to remain on the feet. Danny Roberts, crafty little southpaw. He's getting up there in age, though. I mean, he got beat up by Jack Della Maddalena in his last fight, but he's got decent wins on his record against Ramazan Emeev, and he's been in the UFC for a long time. He's a UFC vet. He definitely knows what he's doing. He's a striker. He's going to keep it on the feet. He feints a lot. He tries to find openings. He's got a very good jab, and he's fairly large for the welterweight division. So a lot of good stuff going for Danny Roberts. Johnny Parsons, on the other end, he's a striking coach at Syndicate. He's smaller for a welterweight. He's under 6 foot. Smaller guy. I think he's right around 5'9", 5'10". He's extremely good at checking leg kicks. Just throwing that out there. I mean, that's the first thing that kind of jumps off the page is he checks every leg kick. So if you're a guy who thinks he's just going to beat up the front leg and just kind of work from there and chop him out like a tree, it's going to be tough. Going to be real tough. So, fun fact about Johnny Parsons: leg checking, kick checking extraordinaire. Anyway, he's a guy that's going to come in and mix in the combinations. Really, the jab, throw that overhand. He can close the distance. He's not afraid to go first when he's striking either. Very comfortable on the feet, and you can tell. Against a guy like Danny Roberts, I think Danny Roberts is a little bit more durable than people give him credit for. I think Della Maddalena hit him with a bunch of solid shots to knock him out. It wasn't like he knocked him out cold with one shot, right? It's not like he touched the chin and he just kind of turns to dust. So, I'm going to give Roberts a little bit more credit there. Against Johnny Parsons, I think it's going to be close because I think Roberts is going to be feigning a lot. It's going to be like more of a low volume affair, but Roberts can jump in and touch that chin and, really mix in the combinations. Johnny Parsons, on the other hand, he's solid leg kicks to all levels. It's going to be tough to kick Roberts in the head being the small guy that he is because Roberts is taller, but I really think he can rip the body with the kicks, rip the legs with the kicks, and mix in that striking that he has, really land those overhands on Danny Roberts and back him up in this fight. So both guys don't throw a lot of volume. More so, trying to get Danny Roberts is going to be feigning a lot, trying to pull the offense out of Parsons, and Parsons kind of a very Muay Thai striking base where he's just kind of going to be in front of you squared up the entire time, maybe mix in some feints, but he's going to be really just looking for, his next combination that he's going to land. So in this one, I'm going to go with Johnny Parsons. I just think he's going to be hitting harder and hitting more often. And he's pretty well rounded on the feet. So I'm going to go with Johnny Parsons that fight. Moving on. Don't have a bet on it. Moving on, we got Davey Grant facing off against Daniel Marcos. So in this one, I love dangerous Davey Grant, but I really think Daniel Marcos is he's I'm not going to say the real deal, but he's going to be a problem at bantamweight. I mean, he's got veteran striking prowess. In his last fight against Oliveira. I mean, Oliveira is a pretty wild striker, but Marcos was an underdog, and he just absolutely demolished him. He's got good movement. He's very comfortable on the feet. He's got great boxing combinations. He can mix in the leg kick. He can really have a heavy leg kick and makes you think that, you got to worry about all areas of your defense, not just one level, not just one, it's not just going to be boxing combinations. It's going to be kicks too. He moves really well. He's got good striking defense. He's good wrestling. He's faced guys on the Contender Series who can wrestle. Brandon Lewis tried to implement that game plan, and Marcos, especially early on, was able to stuff those takedowns. Really was able to get his offense off in that fight and really touched up Brandon Lewis. Davey Grant, he's kind of a wild striker. He kind of wings those hooks. He throws from awkward angles. Really good at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as well. Solid grappler in his own right, but really, I mean, he's a guy that's going to stand and bang. He's a really fun fighter, which is awesome because a lot of these fights on this card, I can see them kind of being, like the Ketlin Vieira fight. Like, there's going to be a lot of clinch work in that fight. And, get Danny Roberts versus Johnny Parsons. It's going to be a lot of feints. It's going to be kind of a tactical warfare. But in this one, I really think Davey Grant is going to be out there slugging, and I think Daniel Marcos is going to be slugging too. I just think Daniel Marcos is going to be able to counter Grant like what Adrian Yanez did. I mean, Grant leaves himself open. He's more than willing to eat one, to give one, but I think Marcos is going to be able to get in and get out without getting hit, and I think that's going to be the biggest thing in this fight. I think Grant can definitely get his offense off, especially if Marcos is on the back foot and he's circling away, and Grant's able to cut him off and get him up against the cage and, let off a combination. But I really think in this one, I mean, Grant's going to go first, and I think Marcos is just going to get that timing down and those counters. And yeah, he's just going to be able to touch Grant and then get out of there. And Grant's not going to be able to find him. Grant had a tough time finding Rafael Assunção in their last fight. And I know that's Assunção's MO, right? He's kind of a weird guy to fight with how he mixes in. He kind of stands with his back up against the cage. He moves really well, and he's just kind of hard to find. I think it's going to be similar for Davey Grant in this fight. I think Marcos is going to be a little bit hard to find. And Marcos is going to be able to find him. So I'm going with Daniel Marcos. I also got a bet on him at 1 unit, minus 127. He's currently at minus 155. These guys open close to a pick 'em, right around minus. I think Daniel Marcos was favored at minus 120. He's now up to minus 155. So we're talking about 35 cents worth of line movement in his favor. Going with Daniel Marcos. Moving on, finally at our main card, man. I feel like we've been talking about a ton of fights today. So we got Lerone Murphy facing off against Joshua Culibao. In this fight, I think it's a dead even fight on the feet. I think Lerone Murphy and Josh Culibao are both very good strikers. I think Culibao is very good with the leg kicks. Showed that in the Bagdasarian fight. He can get hit, but Bagdasarian is an elite level striker. I think Coulibao's pretty solid on the feet as well. Very competitive against a Lerone Murphy who's also good everywhere. Coulibao's got good jiu-jitsu as well. He's faced some tough competition leading up to before his UFC career and in his UFC career, and Lerone Murphy has as well. I mean, I don't want to discredit Lerone Murphy that much because of that tough fight that he had, against a guy on short notice who we didn't really get a chance to really understand how he fought in Santos. So, in his past performances, Lerone Murphy has been shown that he's, every bit deserving of that undefeated record that he has. So, I mean, on this fight, I see it playing out on the feet. I think Lerone Murphy's going to be just a little bit more, how should I put it, accurate than Josh Culibao is. I think he's going to be able to just find him more. Josh Culibao, I mean, I don't want to discredit him too much. I think that against Seungwoo Choi fight too, I mean, he dropped him like 3 times in that fight and really put a beating on him for 3 rounds. Wasn't able to get him out of there, but that definitely put a beating on him. And I think against Bagdasarian, when he was able to get him down to the ground, he ended up sinking in that choke. And, that's Bagdasarian's weakness. But, Lerone Murphy's solid everywhere. So it's not like if the fight goes down to the ground, Culibao is going to have such a big advantage there. I think Lerone Murphy can definitely hold his own. And yeah, these guys are just really evenly contested. I mean, I can see it going down to a judge's scorecard decision, and it's really just going to boil down to, who either hit more or who hit harder in each round. And I got to give Lerone Murphy the edge in that category. I think he's just going to hit just a little bit harder. I think he's going to just be a little bit more accurate than Culibao. I think Culibao is going to get his own offense off, but I really do think this can be a sneaky fight of the night. I'm going to go with Lerone Murphy as my pick for him to stay undefeated. And yeah, no bet on that one. Moving on, we got Jai Herbert versus Ziam. Again, another one that's going to be a kickboxing affair, but two guys that are pretty hesitant on the feet. Jai Herbert was a guy who lived up to his name, the Black Country Banger. Used to get into these wars, but now, after getting knocked out a couple of times by Trinaldo, and then also against Ilia Topuria, which no shame there. I mean, that happens. He's kind of fight different. He kind of fights a little bit different. He's more reserved, more feints, kind of doesn't just jump in and throw those combinations. He's understands that he can't take that damage because he's liable to get knocked out. And Ziam kind of fights the same way. I mean, he's a guy who's used to being able to fight at range, which is going to be weird in this fight because Ziam 75-inch reach at lightweight normally gets it done to give you the advantage, but Jai Herbert is so big. He's 6'1", 6'2", 77-inch reach for a lightweight, which is just crazy. That's close to that Jalen Turner kind of like freak. I think that's the same reach Jalen Turner has, is 77 inches. So Ziam, accomplished kickboxer, showed that he's got the grappling prowess in his fights against Malarkey and then against Figlak as well, who was looking to take him down that fight, and Ziam was just able to stuff it and keep it on the feet and really just hurt Figlak and punish him. In this one, I think Ziam's more of the polished striker. I think Jai Herbert could definitely implement just as much damage as Ziam. I think he can he really has a shot to win this fight, but I think Jai Herbert, the old Jai Herbert, is the one that would have a chance to win this fight, because I don't think Ziam poses much of a threat to knock him out. I don't think he has the power that Ilia Topuria has. I don't think he has the power that Massaran Duba has, Francisco Trinaldo. So I really think if Herbert shows the aggression, he can win this fight and keep Ziam, on his back foot. Use those kicks, use that length, but I don't see him being able to do that. I think he's going to give up his length. I think he's going to be hesitant on the feet. And I think Ziam's just going to be able to poke him. He's just going to poke him and move, and he's going to end up winning a decision. So I'm going with Ziam in that fight. As far as the line movement, it's moving in Ziam's way in a big way. These guys opened up at par, just like a lot of these fights, close to par. This one they were both minus 110, and Ziam just shot up, minus 155. So sharp action on Ziam, and that's going to be my pick. That's going to be my side. Moving on, we got Andre Muniz versus Paul Craig. Battle of the two grapplers. I'm going to be honest in this fight. Paul Craig's moving down to middleweight, and I think Paul Craig's going to get knocked out. I'm just going to put it out there right now. Andre Muniz, more of a submission guy. He's got decent hands. I mean, he hit Brandon Allen with a couple of hard shots while it was standing. Obviously not a great guy. Like, not a great boxer, not a great striker, but against a guy like Paul Craig, you don't need to be. You just need to hit him clean a couple of times. He didn't have a chin at light heavyweight, and now he's cutting all this extra weight. He's not going to have a chin at middleweight either. He's crazy. Even if the fight goes to the ground, Muniz is too good at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's going to just roll over Craig. I don't understand this fight. I don't see a way that Paul Craig can win other than playing possum like he normally does, taking a bunch of damage on ground and pound if Muniz decides to do it, and if he doesn't get his lights shut out, he'll lock in a triangle choke. That's his move. But Muniz is too good at jiu-jitsu. He understands what he's trying to do. He's not going to fall for that trap. So I really do think Paul Craig in this fight, I think Muniz, if it stays standing, I think Muniz is going to hurt him. And if it goes to the ground, I think Muniz is going to opt to punch him in the face because Paul Craig will let him. And I think Paul Craig's going to go out this time because cutting down to middleweight is just not good for the gas tank, and it's not good for your dome piece or your brain. So I got Muniz scrambling Paul Craig fairly early in that fight, to be honest with you. I don't even think it's going to be close. And as far as the line's concerned, Muniz is minus 215, Paul Craig's plus 185. Yeah, I really do like Muniz in that fight. So moving on, we got Nathaniel Wood facing off against Andre Fili. Nathaniel Wood minus 205 as it stands right now. Andre Fili plus 175. Nathaniel Wood open minus 190, so about 15 cents worth of movement in his favor. Not a ton of movement, but a little bit. Andre Fili uses his length well. He's a decent striker. I would say he doesn't have as good a volume as some people may think. As far as when you look at the striking numbers, he is liable to getting hit too. But in a lot of his fights where he wins, he uses his wrestling very effectively. He's able to get the fight to the ground, and he really mixes it up well. And he can put a hurting on you on the feet. I mean, against Daniel Pineda, you go back and look at that. He was piecing him up until Pineda there was an eye poke, and then he kind of took the easy way out. I'm not going to judge, but, sometimes when you're looking at these fights and people these fighters, they're getting beat, they're getting beat, and all of a sudden it's just, I can't continue, I got blurry vision. They're telling the doctor everything they want to tell them to get the fight stopped. Anyway, I'm going to stop shitting on Daniel Pineda. Moving on. I mean, in this fight, I think Nathaniel Wood's just too athletic for Andre Fili. I really do think he's going to be able to get in and get out and not get hit, even though Fili's going to have a long reach advantage. I think Nathaniel Wood's going to be able to get on the inside and really touch Fili. I don't think Fili's going to be able to get the fight to the ground because Nathaniel Wood's a good wrestler in his own right. And I think Nathaniel Wood might actually have his own success with his offensive takedowns. And even if he doesn't do a lot of damage down there, at least get Andre Fili thinking. So when he does jump in with those combinations to close the distance, Andre Fili's not going to just be able to decide, okay, we're striking. He's going to have to think, is he shooting or is he striking? And that's going to be enough to get Nathaniel Wood to win. I got to play on him at minus 190. I put 1.5, a little bit over 1.5 units on him at minus 190. I'm pretty confident in Nathaniel Wood. He's an athletic dude. As long as that knee injury, which didn't seem to be much of an injury, it was more of a cut than it was, any type of tear, or, there really wasn't much ligament damage from what I understand. As long as he's good on that knee, I really do think he's going to be the more athletic guy in this fight, and he's going to be able to take it home. So give me Nathaniel Wood against Andre Fili. Moving on, we got Molly McCann versus Julia Stoliarenko. In this fight, Molly McCann's a pretty big favorite. She's right around minus 215. Money's been coming in on Stoliarenko. She's down to plus 190. You can get her out. She was right around plus 215. So I'll get her around 25 cents worth of movement in her favor. Another one where I don't really understand it, to be honest with you. I think Stoliarenko's armbar bust in the first round. She always has a ton of success in the first minute. It's the fight to the ground. She jumps armbar, and if she doesn't get it, she's toast. She visibly gassed in a featherweight fight against Chelsea Chandler in a fight where she didn't really have to cut weight. And she has problems with the scale before. And now she's coming down to flyweight. So think about that. She's cutting down to flyweight. She was never good at cutting down to bantamweight. And she's going to cut an additional, 10 pounds? No way. No way is she going to be able to last. She's going to be gassed out. Molly McCann, she has faced adversity in the grappling and succumbed to it, like she did against Erin Blanchfield, like she did against Jillian Robertson, but they're much better grapplers than Julia Stoliarenko. Stoliarenko has one move. It's an armbar, right? So here's how this fight's going to go. I'm just going to break it down like this. Stoliarenko comes in, Molly McCann, they're looking at each other. McCann's fainting. McCann jumps in for a combination. Stoliarenko ducks under, grabs it, takes her down. Instead of taking mount, instead of trying to do ground and pound, Molly McCann's squirming around. She's trying to get up. Stoliarenko's going to grab an arm. She's going to go for an armbar. McCann's going to defend it. She's going to turn around. She's going to push into her opponent. She's eventually going to get it back up to her feet. Stoliarenko, there may be a few exchanges, and then Molly McCann is just going to take over as Stoliarenko's mouth is open. She's going to try to shoot for takedowns. They're going to get stuffed. They're going to be sloppy, and then the longer the fight goes, and the more Stoliarenko's gas tank goes, the easier it's going to be for McCann to open up on her, and she's going to knock her out, whether it be in the first round or the second round. I don't see it going to a third round. I think Molly McCann has this fight pretty easily, and that's who I'm going with. I'm going with Molly McCann. I really don't value Julia Stoliarenko really at all. I think her fighting style is ridiculous. I don't think she's evolved at all, and I don't think she is going to evolve. I think she is what she is, and that's armbar or bust. Moving on, we got Tom Aspinall facing off against Marcin Tybura in our main event. So, Marcin Tybura, consistency is what you're going to get. You know what you're going to get with Tybura. He's evolved on the feet. He definitely showed against Blagoy Ivanov that, he can stand and he can win exchanges on the feet. He's not afraid to do so. He's not uncomfortable. He can wrestle. He's a good grappler. He's very heavy on top when he gets the fight to the ground. He's got good ground and pound. And he's just a consistent dude who's been around for a while, who's always been ranked at heavyweight, and just is a staple in the top 10 of heavyweight. But he does struggle against guys who are bigger and more athletic than he is. I mean, even in the Greg Hardy fight, Greg Hardy was really touching him up before Tybura got the takedown in the second round and ended up beating him in because Greg Hardy has no ground game. It's just those issues. Augusto Sakai as well. He's not even that much more athletic than Tybura, but Tybura got touched. Sakai got him up against the fence and just torched him. And now he's facing a guy who's extremely athletic in Tom Aspinall. Granted, coming off of ACL surgery, right? So, you always worry about that knee, but Tom Aspinall has lightning quick hands, very good boxing. He's been training MMA pretty much his whole life. He's extremely good on the ground. He's got great jiu-jitsu. He's strong. He's got good wrestling. I just don't see an area where Marcin Tybura can win this fight. Really. I really think Tom Aspinall, he's got too many tricks. If he's not having success on the feet, he can take it to the ground. If he is, even if he is having success on the feet, but if he's getting touched or if he got touched, he's like, I didn't like that. That didn't feel good. You can just bring it down to the ground. And when you're on the ground, Tybura got taken down by Romanov. He got controlled by Romanov for almost an entire round. Tom Aspinall could definitely do the same thing, land some decent ground and pound, and he won't tire out. I'm going to go with Tom Aspinall. I don't know how much more, what more I can say in this fight. It's a UFC card in London. Tom Aspinall's headlining, and they gave him Marcin Tybura. Do you really think they want Tom Aspinall to lose this fight? Right? I don't like to say fights are set up, but stylistically, this is a great matchup for Tom Aspinall. It's a guy who he is way more athletic than, he's a lot faster than, and he's just going to be able to dominate. I got him finishing the fight. I don't have a bet on it, but he is my pick. He's at minus 475. Tybura's at plus 350. He's been up as high as minus 500. Some guys are taking a flyer on Marcin Tybura, but really, I don't see it. I can't even take a fly. I can't even consider a flyer on the underdog on this one. I just think Tom Aspinall's too good all around. So that's the breakdown. As always, guys, follow Bobby Betts Fights at Twitter, at YouTube, at betmma.tips. Bobby Betts Fights. Let's go ahead and cash out. UFC London, it's don't forget, it's an evening card because we're across the pond, so it's getting kicked off early around noon. Main card at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time if you're on my coast. So Bobby Betts Fights signing off. I hope everyone cashes in. Have a good one.